Remember when we used to celebrate great presidents in the month of February? We used to celebrate George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, until it was decided by representatives who don't represent us anymore that we should celebrate presidents, the good, the bad, and the very ugly. George Washington walked away from power. He's arguably our greatest president. We should celebrate him. Barack Hussein Obama craved power, coveted power, took power that wasn't his. Obama deserves to be denigrated. Abraham Lincoln kept our nation together after a bloody civil war. That's worthy of celebration. Joe Biden may very well usher in a civil war. That is worth condemnation. I'm calling off President's Day. I refuse to honor the dishonorable in tonight's preamble. Europe is on the precipice of war. The reason? Because the United States can't deter such aggression. Why? Because we are weak and getting weaker by the minute. Lawless thugs like Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, and the Ayatollah Khomeini have sized up America and determined that we are the weakest of paper tigers under Democrats who support socialism and the GOP that can't even unite in opposition to socialism. The world's despots have watched tens of thousands of Americans thrown out of the U.S. military for refusing to take the China virus vaccine. They've watched Joe Biden's party declare war on America's energy sector, and despots of every description watched with glee and amazement as Joe Biden and his know-nothing millennials orchestrated the worst foreign policy defeat in America's modern history with the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. To make matters worse, Putin, Xi, and the Ayatollah watched as the American press joined the American government in turning their backs on thousands of American citizens that Joe Biden left behind under the terrorist Taliban's rule. So now war looms in Europe as Putin has no credible fear of the United States, as this nation run by those who either sympathize with Putin or can't even spell Putin, they're in control. In fact, the administration has all but conceded defeat as they sent a person who has no accomplishments to her name, someone who couldn't even win her home state in a run for president. Team Biden sent the border czar, Kamala Harris, to talk about Europe's borders.
That people have a right to choose their own form of government, that there are inalienable rights which governments must protect, that the rule of law should be cherished, that sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states must be respected, and that national borders should not be changed by force.
Ooh, wow, I can see Putin shaking in his boots from here. Oh, actually, no, folks. He's shaking because he's laughing too hard. He can barely contain himself. Oh, and isn't it ironic that the administration that has fostered 2 million illegal aliens breaking into the United States over the last year has the gall to discuss the integrity of any nation's border? Putin, a KGB tactician, just announced that he'll be recognizing some of Ukraine's territories as independent, in essence, carving up our ally like a Christmas turkey. Not that the former KGB agent believes in Christmas or God, mind you. Communists, well, their God is government, just like Democrats. But notice how Putin can make such an announcement in the name of tyranny. But Joe Biden and his weak party couldn't make such a declaration about Taiwan in the name of freedom. You see, that might make Joe Biden's buddies in Beijing angry. And they paid good money so that Joe Biden would never make them angry. But Team Biden has shown weakness with Putin, too. Most Americans, even the press, are asking why Biden won't slap so-called tough sanctions on Russia and then remove them if and when Putin withdraws his troops. It's something Biden nor Harris can answer.
If you believe Putin has made up his mind, what leverage do you really have? Why not put those sanctions in place now?
The purpose of the sanctions has always been and continues to be deterrence. But let's also recognize the unique nature of the sanctions that we have outlined. These are some of the greatest sanctions, if not the strongest, that we've ever issued.
Yeah, but officially the sanctions are not in effect. So what does it matter how tough they allegedly are? And the jury is still out if Team Biden is telling Americans the truth on just how biting these sanctions will be on Russia. But the Democrats who support socialism want all of you to know, even their own voters, they want you to know that more pain is coming your way. Here's Harris and left-wing Texas Congressman Colin Allred promising your prices at the pump will go up because they are too weak and you all were silly enough to vote for them to begin with. Watch.
It requires sometimes for us to put ourselves out there in a way that maybe we will incur some cost. And in this situation, that may relate to energy costs, for example.
We may see higher energy costs come out of this, and we may see some of our supply chains either interrupted or parts of it becoming more expensive because we're trying to hit those parts of the Russian economy. But this is, I think, part of our patriotic duty to understand that it may be that we're asked to pay a little more to protect democracy around the world.
Did you catch that? It's patriotic for you to have your family's budgets destroyed because left-wingers like Biden and Allred there are so weak. They put us in this situation. In other words, because you were silly enough to vote for people who support socialism, you get screwed. And part of the reason why we are in such big trouble is that those in leadership either refuse to acknowledge or are trying to hide the nature of our enemies. In contrast to Joe Biden, one of our great presidents, Ronald Wilson Reagan, told us the truth.
At the same time, we see totalitarian forces in the world who seek subversion and conflict around the globe to further their barbarous assault on the human spirit. Must freedom wither in a quiet, deadening accommodation with totalitarian evil? Sir Winston Churchill refused to accept the inevitability of war or even that it was imminent. He said, "I do not believe that Soviet Russia desires war. What they desire is the fruits of war."
The truth is, when America is strong, petty despots don't go nuts because they fear credible retribution from the United States. Peace is achieved in one of two ways: surrender, the Democrat way, and then strength, the conservative way. Ronald Reagan had his preference. His way led to the downfall of Putin's beloved Soviet Union.
Our military strength is a prerequisite to peace. But let it be clear, we maintain this strength in the hope it will never be used. For the ultimate determinant in the struggle that's now going on in the world will not be bombs and rockets, but a test of wills and ideas. Winston Churchill exclaimed about Britain's adversaries, "What kind of a people do they think we are?" Well, Britain's adversaries found out what extraordinary people the British are. But all the democracies paid a terrible price for allowing the dictators to underestimate us. We dare not make that mistake again. So let us ask ourselves, what kind of people do we think we are? And let us answer, free people, worthy of freedom, and determined not only to remain so, but to help others gain their freedom as well.
It is hard to watch those clips, isn't it? To contrast Reagan's strength, his pro-Americanism and belief in America with a mouse of a man, Joe Biden, and his left-wing administration. It shows how far this nation has fallen from competent leadership that puts America's best interests first with what we've got now. War on the horizon, threatening to engulf the world as it has done twice before. A war in Europe will harm the entire world for sure. The reason we are in this mess is because Joe Biden is one of the biggest failures in the history of our republic. So in my view, we should cancel President's Day. That's the thing to do these days, isn't it? You just cancel everything. Let's cancel President's Day until we actually get one. A president we can be proud of and celebrate.